Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you have decided to watch this online class, I'm Evangelist Matthew Miles Sr., welcoming you to another online Bible study with the Central Point Church of Christ. This class is entitled Depression, a Stiller of Life. It's based on a book entitled Conquering the Beast Within. How I Fought Depression and Won, and You Can Too, written by a young lady by the name of Kate Irwin. Beloved, in lesson 3, in closing, I told you that Kate had named depression as a beast, and that the very battleground of this beast was the mind. That's where the battleground of depression is, beloved. It's the mind of man. In this lesson, we will begin by seeing how Kate identifies depression as a beast. During Kate's personal struggle, she saw a wild and ferocious beast as a symbol of her depression. To see the beast as a separate being helped her to understand and cope with how she was feeling. Beloved, it's with this concept and perspective that Kate hopes to help others understand this illness called depression. Its emotions, reactions, and feelings, which may be hard to explain sometimes. Kate was challenged with the decision either to challenge or fight the beast or to give in with the beast. I don't know who I'm talking to today, but you have been challenged. And your challenge is whether you will surrender to this beast called depression or whether you will decide to fight this beast. You see, sometimes you may think it's easy to give in and to just live with depression or to give up and just let go of life, period. That's a real struggle. Just days ago in the news, we heard about the sudden death of a very famous entertainer who had been struggling with depression for most of her life. And it ended tragically because she decided to give in. It's a sickness. Sometimes it's out of control, and we'll get to that really in the next lesson. But I'm glad today to share that Kate decided to bravely challenge this beast. And not just one time, but she decided and she made up her mind to challenge this beast each and every day until she won. That's right. Kate is writing this book because she won. Today, beloved, Kate is challenging you. We don't know who we're talking to, but she's challenging you. She is declaring that you have the same courage inside of you to persistently challenge your beast, and not only to challenge your beast, but to be a winner, to be victorious. You see, some people refer to depression as a mental illness or a brain disorder. Kate calls it her broken leg theory. Stay with me. You'll understand it in a minute. She goes on to explain while she was depressed, she missed many things. Great times with friends and family, a bunch of school events, a bunch of school, period. She missed her favorite sports. Kate felt like she had missed a huge portion of her life. Does that sound familiar? She felt terrible, but she had a great support system in her family. And that's important, beloved. They helped her to see her illness as a broken leg. With a broken leg, you would miss out on the same privileges. You would miss out on all those previous things that I just mentioned. And you would still have to work hard to get better. As a further example, if you had, let's say for instance, you had cancer, you would have to take medicine, you would have to endure pain, mental pain, physical pain. Kate says that just remember that your beast is just as serious as a case of cancer or a broken leg. Notice, one very important thing to remember here, beloved. Kate wants you to remember those who are battling your beast. Those who are battling, Kate wants you to remember you and the beast are not the same. You are two separate beings. Kate wants to be perfectly clear that you understand that depression is not your fault, nor is it a character flaw. You are you, and the beast is depression. You see, in this battle, the first thing you may want to ask yourself is, why me? Have you done that, beloved? Have you asked, why me? You may feel like you did something wrong. Sometimes you might feel like you're being punished. But are you ready for the reality? Are you ready for the reality? The reality is you didn't do anything wrong. But sometimes your struggle is believing that you didn't do anything wrong. Kate admits she asked the question, why me? And she didn't just ask it one time, beloved. She asked it many times. But it's very important for you to understand today that it's not a punishment. Depression is not a punishment. And you don't deserve it. It's like catching the flu. You have no control over catching the flu or a bad cold. You have no control of that. Beloved, it is a sobering fact that society looks at mental illness differently than they look at physical illness. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. But another very important thing to know is that depression is not a weakness. It is an illness. But here's the good news. It's an illness that's curable. I said it's curable. Seasoned saints, believe it or not, there's even a beauty to depression. Now, I know I know you saying, Brother Miles, are you out of your mind? No, I'm speaking Kate's very words. This 13-year-old that began battling depression and won and wrote a book at 18. There's a beauty to depression. Kate declares that there's so much more. Here it is. There's so much more to gain than to lose from the very experience of depression. I don't know about you, but I'm about to shout all over this place. Yeah, there is a beauty. There is a reward on the other side. Listen to this declaration, this bold declaration of this 18-year-old who began battling this beast at the age of 14. Listen to Kate, and I quote, "The feeling you'll get when you face and defeat the beast is worth the fight. When your battle is won, you will be able to face anything on the horizon," end quote. That's what this young lady can declare, that she fought the beast. She was consistent, and she won. Sensational saints, I can't help but to be reminded of that sweet songster and choir director of Israel, David, when he pens these words in Psalms 30 and 5, the C and D part, if you would. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. The songwriter, Emmylou Harris, had it right when she wrote the song, "The darkest hour is just before dawn." You ever heard that song before? Well, listen to the lyrics, beloved. The darkest hour is just before dawn. The sun is slowly sinking. The day's almost gone. Still darkness falls around us, and we must journey on. And the chorus says, the darkest hour is just before dawn. The narrow way leads home. Lay down your soul at Jesus' feet. The darkest hour is just before dawn. Verse 2 says, like a shepherd out on the mountain, watching the sheep down below. He's coming back to calming. Will you be ready to go? The darkest hour is just before dawn. Beloved, the darkest hour represents the beast, the depression. Dawn, daybreak, represents victory, the overcoming, the coming out, the winning of the fight. Let's notice another aspect of depression. Depression can make you feel so out of control. So out of control. I don't know who I'm talking to, but if you've experienced it, you understand what I'm talking about. We may ask the question, what causes this feeling of being out of control? Well, when Kate was diagnosed, she began to try to figure out just when it all started. She discovered that it started a year before she was actually diagnosed. She did not notice it because it started out very small. She thought it was simply a bad day. You see how progressive it is and how under the radar it comes. She accepted it as such because she simply thought it was just a bad day and that it was just part of her life, something that was just going to come and go. But Kate says, but then it grew, but it began to grow rapidly. She says the sadness became deep and went on to become unstoppable, not for days, but for weeks. Brothers and sisters, listen to how Kate describes this beast that was growing inside of her. Listen to her own words. She says, it was growing inside me and got big before I realized something was seriously wrong. Does that sound familiar? She further states, the beast had consumed me. Kate did not want to admit it, so she kept denying that something was wrong. Many of us do that. Many of us don't want to admit that we're depressed or that we have gone through depression, or when we were in depression, we didn't want to admit it. We ignore the signs. We ignore the frustration that turns to anger, and the anger turns to bitterness. And it begins to affect all of those who are around us. We begin to mistreat people for no other apparent reason. All because of that depression, the state that you're in. Your coworkers can be asking for simple, normal requests, but you find yourself irritable, irritated by phone calls, common questions. Beloved, my heart literally bleeds as I recall studying this case with Kate. She says it was as though she had invited the beast to an all-you-can-eat buffet. Ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine that pain? Can you imagine the pain that Kate was experiencing? She just literally described being consumed by the beast, by depression. She described this buffet as being ravaged eaten up as a prey caught by a ferocious animal that's on the prowl. I don't know about you, beloved, but that's a very devastating reality. But yet and still, many feel this way. The struggle is real. They feel consumed, as if sometime to be drowning in a sea, to be overwhelmed and flooded by anxiety. But here's the reality. If many of us would just be honest today, many of you, and I could even say, that we can believe it because many of us have experienced it. Oh yeah, we have. We have either experienced it or we are in our battle right now. And if you're in neither category, you need this lesson and you need this series because you're going to run into it sooner or later. Oh yeah. Many of our ancestors, many of our forefathers have dealt with depression and didn't know what to call it. Didn't know what to call it. Sad to say that among many of us in our ethnic group, some people just say, oh, he just crazy. Some people say, oh, she just like that. She just mean like that. I've said it before. The first time years ago that I was able to discover that I was actually living through a depressed state, it came not because I went to the doctor. It came not because I went to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. It came because I was doing research to prepare a sermon series on depression. Because so many members at the church I was serving, so many members were going through depression. So many were talking about anxiety, talking about anger, talking about bitterness. We had couples that was going through all kind of tension relationships. And so I decided as a minister and as teacher that I would do a research and put together a series of lessons, sermon lessons on depression. And it was then, beloved, as I began to unfold this research, that I figured out what my problem was, that I was living through a depression. Yes, I was working every day, worked long hours for the church, preaching every day, had a radio program, a Sunday cable program, a talk class, 2 classes a week, going through all the motion, a father of 5, a husband, going through all of that. I was functioning, but I was in a depressed state. Beloved, depression is real. But let me drop this in your lap. Not only is depression real, but depression is real close to you, closer than you know. Let me just let that sit in a minute. I said depression is real, but it's real close to you, closer than you know. Let me give you some stats, and then I'll give you a closing remark, and we'll call it a wrap. According to the NIMH, the National Institute of Mental Health, there was a prevalence of major depression episodes among U.S. adults from the age of 18 and older in 2020. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, an estimated 21 million adults in the United States had at least one major depression episode. 21 million adults had at least one major episode. This number represents 8.4% of all U.S. adults. That's a high number. I said it's real. It's closer to you than you think. Battling. This beast is battling with one of your loved ones. You just call them mean. You call them cranky. You might even say, oh, they just crazy like that. But they're battling the beast. It's closer than you think. Well, one of your neighbors is battling with the beast. One or more of your co-workers, you call them all kind of other names. I can't say because I'm a preacher and a Christian, but they're battling with the beast. Yeah, some of even your own church members are battling with the beast. Preachers, teachers, elders, deacons are battling with that beast. Store clerks, you thought you had the demon from hell. You know, you just trying to get through the store, just trying to pay for your stuff, and they act like they don't want to be at work. I know you know what I'm talking about. Say amen when you can. And don't have a heart attack when I mention these next two to you, or next three. Even the chef that's preparing your food at the restaurant could be battling the beast. Yeah, he's preparing your food. She's preparing your food. Even that doctor, that little man in that white coat, that's examining your body and that's writing you prescriptions, could be battling with the beast. And Lord have mercy, that little man or woman in that white coat behind the counter that's filling those prescriptions, that little chicken scratch, could be battling with the beast. And they're filling your prescription and handing it to you with a smile. And you have no idea the battle that they could be going through in their mind. What's your takeaway today? The takeaway is that depression is real. It is a beast. It can steal you and rob you of time, pressure. So not only will it rob you of time, but I need you to understand it's beatable. Depression is curable. Although it's closer than you think, although many people around you may be dealing with it, it is curable. It is curable. Next lesson, in lesson number 5, we'll talk about how this beast grows to get to a point of out of control. But I trust and pray I've shared something with you today that will encourage you, that will give you the strength to fight. Choose to fight. Choose to win. And I promise you, joy will come in the morning. The darkest hour is just before dawn. I commend you to God in the word of his grace, which is able to build you up and give you an inheritance among the sanctified. Until next time, think on these things. Take care of yourself. Share this video. Share this link. It may bless somebody's life. God bless.